America is 34 trillion in debt, and the interest on that alone is now higher than our defense budget. But what if I told you if instead of kicking the can down the road, we threw it up into hyperspace? What if America could refinance its debt with a 2 trillion bond plan backed by Bitcoin? This new plan, proposed by Andrew Holmes, called Bit Bonds, was just pitched in front of half a dozen US senators, and it might just be the biggest curveball in monetary history. On today's episode of Bitcoin Backstage, we explore with McShane why you need to keep this new idea on your radar, and why we could see action from the US government sooner than you think. Let's mine deep. So here's the problem. The US government can't stop spending, and interest rates are too high to keep rolling over debt without choking the economy. In practice, the US is buying things it can't afford, with money it doesn't have. And now the bill is coming due. The question is, who's going to pay for it? Without miraculous economic growth, we're heading dangerously close to the final act of Ray Dalio's long-term debt cycle. Economist Zoltan Pozsar has also called this the monetary divorce, where the debt load on the issuer of the world's reserve currency now threatens its long-term stability in the eyes of the other largest world economies. But it turns out that Bitcoin may be able to fix this too, in ways that no one was able to think about. Enter Bit Bonds. US Treasury bonds usually follow the Fed's interest rate playbook. But picture a bond that dials down the fixed yield to just 0 to 1%, and in return, hands you a slice of Bitcoin's upside. Picture a 10-year Treasury bond priced at $100, currently paying 4% interest. Now, imagine a new 10-year Treasury bill called Bit Bond priced at $100, but it only pays 1%. With the catch that $20 of its proceeds are allocated and invested straight into Bitcoin. Say 10 years go by and Bitcoin is up 500%, that $20 turns into $120. The Treasury could keep $50 of that gain and give the other $50 to the bond investor. That turns their 1% yield into a 60% total return over 10 years, or about 4.8% per year. So the investor ends up with a better return than a normal bond. And the government, because it only pays 1% per year instead of 4%, it saves $30 in interest per bond, plus keeps $50 in Bitcoin upside. With Bit Bonds, both the investor and the government win. Lower interest payments for the Treasury, more potential upside for the holder. Or, as Andrew Holmes puts it,
the United States federal government could acquire $200 billion of Bitcoin and save $354 billion at the same time.
When the money printer goes burp, fiat loses buying power. You know it, I know it, and more people are waking up. But in the US, most places don't accept Bitcoin yet. If you're stuck spending dollars, at least stop earning fiat rewards. The 2% Fold Bitcoin Rewards credit card lets you earn unlimited Bitcoin back on everyday purchases. Bit Bonds are structured like a low coupon bond stapled to a Bitcoin call option. In the worst case scenario, you've just sold debt at a lower interest rate. Best case scenario, you just created a self-paying mechanism to wipe away federal liabilities. The money could fund Social Security, rebuild infrastructure, or maybe, just maybe, buys us some time before the next debt ceiling clown show. So why should you care? Because the current administration isn't done with their Bitcoin plans just yet. And Bit Bonds allow the federal government to acquire more Bitcoin without cost to the taxpayer. Bo Hines, the executive director to Trump's Digital Asset Council, said this recently.
We view Bitcoin as being digital gold. That's why we set up the strategic Bitcoin reserve in the way that we did. It has the immaculate conception, meaning that there's no issuer. It has intrinsic stored value that's traditionally accepted, and we feel like it's in the best interest of Americans to hold on to this asset long term.
For traditional investors, Bit Bonds offer an on-ramp to Bitcoin with the training wheels of a US Treasury. And for Bitcoiners, This is how Bitcoin creeps into the heart of the monetary machine through a backdoor labeled debt solution. As global monetary pressures on the dollar begin to compound, not owning Bitcoin starts to look less like caution and more like a reckless gamble. There is process, politics, and bureaucracy standing in the way for now, but when these macro forces kick into gear, you don't want to be late to the party. So, stack accordingly.
We go backstage at Bitcoin Mena with McShane to talk about Bitcoin.
And one of the things that we've noticed a lot, why many of the people are so love Bitcoin in a way, yes, you self-custody, but also it's decentralized. We've seen a lot of companies add Bitcoin to the balance sheet. We're talking about billions and billions of dollars. Wouldn't that in a way make it more centralized?
No, I don't think so. Because they don't have control over Bitcoin, how it works. You know, you can own as much as you like, but we all enjoy the consensus security mechanisms of Bitcoin together, and make decisions to upgrade the protocol together somewhat. I think it'll be interesting to see over the next few years. There's various proposals for upgrading Bitcoin. There's a lot of arguments. People like to push for ossifying it as well, because it's this is the most viewed repository of code in the world. This is the most important code base in the world. All eyes are on this. You can't take changes to that protocol lightly. It's good to get very clear and to dig into and learn about how upgrades are proposed, who's kind of behind the wheel there, how many people are working into this stuff, what are the arguments for and against. This is all very fun things to consider. It's very exciting what MicroStrategy has done, but people seem to forget that relative to all the companies that exist, almost none have adopted Bitcoin. So imagine what will happen when people slowly start to understand that they can play the credit mechanism of the fiat system and the public equity system to their advantage to stack Bitcoin, which is pristine collateral, on their balance sheets. And this is going to grow, and this is a superpower for companies. You'll see Metaplanet has done this in Japan, and over the last 8 months has become the most. It was a penny stock that no one ever heard of, and after they had taken on this Bitcoin strategic reserve strategy, it became the best asset in Japan.
So you got now the U.S. government wants to have a Bitcoin strategic reserve. You got El Salvador. You got all these businesses adding Bitcoin. Are they going to self-custody? Who's going to have the keys to their wallet? Who's going to be in charge?
Well, I mean, what we've seen so far is they do in fact use institutional custody services, and that's because probably, look, self-custody is complicated. There's many ways to do it. There's no one-size-fits-all solutions, and you don't really want the CEO of your company or whoever's running, the fireman's pension to pass away or run off with the keys. You can't have kind of a single sig solution there. You probably have to do something like a multi-custody, multi-party solution, but you probably are going to take advantage of enterprise services that are completely backed at something like a Coinbase or otherwise.
Will we ever reach to the point where it will become like what Satoshi wanted it to become, an electronic payment system?
I think it succeeded as an electronic payment system. I think it succeeds on small scales at peer-to-peer. I think on larger scales too. We'll see how it scales as the world kind of wakes up to it and adopts it. That's a very different place than we are now in terms of main chain, like final settlement. The question of companies, I think they might. They don't really need to though, because you can use a service. Like I get paid in Bitcoin. Our company doesn't pay me in Bitcoin. I just convert my payments to Bitcoin and take my paycheck in Bitcoin, and it's fantastic. So there's business opportunities there for payroll services.